This is Ashton Eye of Freedom Healers. I am a sensual pleasure guide, an etheric touch master, and an oracle. I assist women in discovering their sensuality and a deeper intimacy. Let freedom heal you. So today I wanted to come on here and give you guys a little bit of my story and my path towards freedom and how I came into the energy of freedom healers. I do have some notes right here, so bear with me if you see me looking down a little bit, and I hope you can see me. I know there's a glare because of my glasses. Trying to find. I hope you guys just don't see it because I really like these glasses. They're spicy. You see? But I might take them off because of the glare. But anyway, so I wanted to give you guys a little bit about who I am and how I got to the place that I'm in right now. So, growing up, I grew up going to Catholic school. My mother had me in Catholic school from the ages of kindergarten to probably about 10th grade. And in Catholic school, of course, sexuality, sensuality is very stringent, it's very strict. The whole energy behind sexuality and sensuality is you don't get to do it until you're married, and there's nothing else said about it. There is, um, of course, we did have some sex ed classes and things of that nature, but they were very technical, which I think most of us growing up had that same energy. So that was my experience in Catholic school. It was just like, you don't do it until marriage, and we're not going to talk about it outside of that. I also went to AME Zion Church growing up, and pretty much the same thing applied there too. There was a lot of elders in the church, so basically, growing up, I was under the impressions that you just don't have sex until marriage. You don't even really show sensuality until you're married. My mother reiterated that my entire life, no sex until marriage. Um, and my father was absent out of my life, so his opinion didn't count, nor did I actually care because he wasn't there. So what can you say? So my mom, growing up, as me and my sister were growing up and into teenagers, one of the first things that she did, our first talks about sex was actually a cartoon, and I believe the name of the cartoon was called "Where Do I Come From?" And that was how I discovered what sex actually was, in a sense, like what it was, what it consisted of. But for me, it just never really clicked. I don't know. I guess because maybe it was a cartoon, or I don't know, but it just never really clicked that um, what I saw in the cartoon is what grown-ups or what people do in order to procreate. So moving along around preteens, I had my first kiss. And my first kiss, I remember the guy. It was outside. It was, behind our building somewhere in New York. And it was like in my mind at the time, it was magical. You know what I mean? It was magical. He was my boyfriend at the time, of course. What is a boyfriend in preteenhood? But he was my boyfriend at the time, and it was like a dream. He held me just like you see it on TV. Like it was just like that. Like he held me, he embraced me in his arms. He held my head. It was so delicate. And when he kissed me, it was beautiful. It was everything. And I was like in heaven. But my bratty little sister saw me, of course, and went running to tell mommy, of course. And I got in so much trouble. So much trouble. That was the first time that I encountered being fresh, being a slut, being a whore. I didn't understand those things until that moment. And it took away so much of the beauty that I experienced from that first kiss. Because after that, it was like, it was tearing down my self esteem pretty much at that point. Like I was not supposed to be doing that at that age. And so, yeah, that was my first experience with a kiss. And so from that point on, oh, and in addition to that, let me say this. In addition to that, I was also forced to wash my mouth out. Yes, I had to brush my teeth thoroughly in front of my mother after my first kiss. So it was really like kind of traumatizing at the time, being that young and experiencing something that I thought was really beautiful and coming into the recognition that it wasn't beautiful at all. It was something that I should have been ashamed of. So going on, growing up, so when I was around 13 or 14 years old, that's when we moved from New York down to North Carolina. and which is why you can probably hear both my accents. But and I experienced my first sexual experience down here. Now, when I experienced my first sexual experience, many of the kids my age had already experienced sex, and we were still, relatively young. But most of the people my age had already experienced sex, had already been doing it for a while. In addition to that, I did hang out with a lot of people that was either my age or a lot older than me. So let me say that. During my soul, of course, being hanging out with older people, hanging out with the people that I did hang out with, I was hearing about sex, but I still just didn't fully grasp what it was. And so my first sexual experience, I didn't even know that that's what I was going to do. I didn't prepare myself in any real way. I mean, of course, I was clean. I took a shower that morning and everything like that, but I didn't know that when I was going to meet my boyfriend, that that's what we were. I knew that's what we were saying we were going to do, but I didn't understand fully what the act consisted of until I was actually there. And so, of course, I agreed to it. I don't take anything away from him at all. Of course, he was a little bit older, probably about 3 or 4 years older than me at the time. But I didn't take anything from him because I agreed to it. I just didn't understand what it consisted of until after it was already done. And then when it was done, it was like, oh, okay, that's what it is, and kind of shrugged and went on about my life. Um, so those were my first experiences, and it's in my opinion that your first sexual experience, your first experiences with intimacy, kind of defines the way you go about the rest of your life. Now, remember, my first kiss, I was already a slut, and I was already a bitch, and I was already a hoe. So, it kind of followed me. It has followed me my whole life, really, and so it's up to a point where I just didn't care about that title anymore. I didn't care about if that's the way you felt about me. Um, it just didn't bother me anymore. And so I went into high school fully rebellious, completely rebellious. I did what I wanted to who I wanted to, when I wanted to do it. I had no cares, zero fucks given, about how you would feel about it, how it affected you. If you had something to say to it, if you called me a hoe, if you called me a slut, if you called me a bitch, it just kind of came with the territory by that time because, that's what I was hearing at home. So why would it be different out here in these streets, and why would it change or define who I am and what I continue to do? So I continue to, I was promiscuous. I was promiscuous throughout high school. I did pretty much as I pleased. Um, I did have a boyfriend, a serious boyfriend in high school, and we were together for about a year, which in high school time was like forever. Um, and so while I was with him, I finally conjured up the courage to tell my mom that we were having sex. Now, I had been having sex for years prior to this, but I finally had conjured the courage to ask my mother for birth control around that age. And when I asked her for birth control, she told me, just don't do it. And that was the end of our conversation. So our conversation once again was limited to like one sentence. Just don't do it. Wait till marriage. And so, okay, mom, if that's what you want. But of course, I still did what I was gonna do all the way up until 18 when I had my first child. Um, at 18, I got married. That was my first marriage. That marriage lasted 10 years. And that was the first time in that marriage with my first husband. That was the first time that I experienced a man stepping up to take care of anything because my mom was a single mother. Remember, I told you that my father left, when I was really, really young. So my mother had been handling most things most of my life. I did have my grandmother around who taught me about the nurturing and the loving type of things. But other than that, like there was no man around. So my first husband was my first experience with a man sticking around and wanting to provide and wanting to show security and love and wanting to take care of me. And it was also a period of time where I felt like finally I had a man who could lead, who could uh, lead me in the right directions, help me to focus, help me to be the kind of woman I was supposed to be, the kind of wife I was supposed to be, the kind of mother I was supposed to be. So I was really, really excited to be married. I was really, really happy with him for a very long time. And I learned also how to be more submissive. If I wanted a man who was going to be in my life, then I had to submit to his will in some ways. The things that he wanted me to do. Which consisted of cooking, cleaning, washing the kids. And having sex with him when he pleased. Making sure that that was regular. And so I remember feeling, at first it was wonderful. It's beautiful. I loved him. He loved me. There was no doubts about that. And then throughout time, he started to cheat. And there was different situations where I had different women coming to tell me that, he was trying to get with them, or he did get with them, or he met them somewhere. He asked them to go somewhere with them, or whatever. Sometimes I was pregnant when it happened. Sometimes I wasn't, but it just was something that was reoccurring for a while. So then I told him, I was like, if this is good for you, then it's good for me too, and I have no problems in stepping up and doing this as well. Like, I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to let you run over me. So eventually, that's what happened. He would cheat, and then I would cheat, and then he would cheat, and then I would cheat. It's not something, and even in the course of the relationship with him, there were things that I didn't necessarily understand or want to do that I did for him, because I thought that that's what I was supposed to do as his wife, and in pleasing him. So, for 10 years of my life, I got married at 18, so 10 years of my life, that was my relationship. It was being the wife that he thought I should be, submitting to that will. And then when I realized that, there was going to be cheating, I was like, well, I'm not going to be here and be walked over. So if you're going to cheat, I'm going to cheat too. And that's what we did. And that relationship ended up becoming very toxic because, of course, men can't take it when we do that. They can do it and we're supposed to suck it up, but men can't take it when we do it to them. So, you know, time progressed. And as we got older, we ended up splitting up. um, Told you I have notes this time. So yeah, we did end up spending some time hurting each other, but I don't want to take away from the feelings that we felt for each other. It was young, it was puppy love, kind of in a sense. I mean, we were doing grown up things, very, very not very, very young, not understanding the dynamics of relationships. We both came from single mother homes. Yes, he had a stepfather, so he kind of had some idea of how marriage was supposed to work. But me, on the other hand, I didn't have any idea. I didn't. That was not something that I was aware of. Pause. I'll be back. Hurt child. Sorry, y'all, I'm back. So, eventually we separated. Um, and during that separation, it was very difficult. It was very difficult during that separation. That was the period of time, and it just so happened that it was also the year of my Saturn return, which I did not understand or know at that point in time, but it was the year of my Saturn return. So, I went through a very dark period of time, very, very dark. I was alone again. I was depressed. I felt like I was a failure at my marriage. I felt like I was a failure as a mother. I felt like I was a failure in life. What I didn't know about myself when my first husband left was that I was uneducated, meaning that I did not obtain a college degree at that point, that I had 3 children, and that no other man was going to want me because I was like tarnished or whatever. That's what I felt like, I was tarnished. And it threw me into a whirlwind, honestly. It threw me into a whirlwind of not fully understanding what to do next. I felt empty. I felt alone. I felt just that nobody could understand, and nobody did. I didn't have any support during that time. I had friends and things of that nature, a couple friends or whatever, but like, generally speaking, at 28, I was the only person that I knew who had been married and had been married as long as I had, which was 10 years at that point, um, and was facing a divorce and facing separation. So I didn't have any friends that could help me or talk me through it because nobody had been there. So, um, what ended up happening was that because of the aloneness and because of the depression that I was feeling, I became promiscuous again. That's where I felt that I could feel that somebody wanted me, that I was desirable, that somebody wanted to hold me or wanted to touch me, wanted to kiss me, wanted to hug me, wanted to be around me. That's where I got that, even if it was momentary. And trust me, at the time, I did not want nor care about anybody actually being with me. I didn't want that. I just wanted the feeling of somebody wanting to be with me, if that makes sense. So I slept around. Thankfully, the people that I was sleeping with at the time, I had probably slept with prior to being married to my husband. So it wasn't like I was out here just sleeping with anybody. It was like exes and stuff, but it was still promiscuity, I guess, in the sense to say that I wasn't committed to any of them. I was just out here like a free butterfly, and I didn't care, and that's what I wanted to do. And the energy was becoming so overwhelming that there was a point where I didn't even look men in the eyes anymore. I stopped looking at men in the eyes because I didn't want them to see me, because I didn't want them to smell the sex on me, because I thought that that's what they were sensing, that's what they were getting, was the smell of sex on me. So I just would kind of walk around with my head down. I wouldn't look anybody in their eyes. If I saw a man coming towards me, I try to go the other way. I didn't want to smell his cologne. I didn't want to look at his physique. Nothing, because anything, it just felt like I was just ready to, like, honestly, ready to pounce. And so, I felt really, really alone in that energy. Like, yeah, I was having sex, and it was a temporary fix. It was my temporary fix, but it wasn't fulfilling to me. So during that period of time, during the separation of my ex-husband and me, I started to get really, really heavily, delve really, really heavily. It was actually right before a year prior to our separation, but started delving really, really hard into our culture and starting to learn about the dynamic people we as African American and Black people are, and where we originated from, who we are, how we are indigenous to the planet, not just one specific continent. Like, yes, our life began in Africa, but then we were able to navigate the seas and the landmass. And so we literally spread out, throughout the entire nation, not nation, but the entire planet. And so learning that we were indigenous to the Americas, that I was indigenous to the Americas, and that I had, Native American relatives and things of that nature that were here prior to slavery and things of that nature, was really helping me to build the foundation that I needed to start to love myself and learn myself. And so, around that period of time, during the separation of my husband, we were separated for a year. And I was really, really, like, when I go into learning about something, I go hard. Like, I want to try to learn as much information as fast as possible. And so during that period of time, I was on this quest. I was going to all these different lectures. I was, getting as much information as I could, constantly in study mode or whatever. And I met my current husband, who was an amazing man whole throughout my whole transition. When I met him, what I loved about him was that he gave me the space that I needed to learn myself. So it wasn't any pressure about us being together or anything like that. He was actually the energy that brought the tools that I needed in order to rebuild myself. So yes, I was already into this way of life, but I didn't understand the spiritual aspects of things at that point, and that's what he gave me. So I started doing meditation. I started doing Reiki, which is what the etheric touch has developed into. Um, I started eating well. I started learning about herbs and things of that nature. And because of that, I found balance. I found peace. I found acceptance. I found myself. I started to know and love myself again. This was the first, when I first came into this information, it was like a playland for me. It was like a whole new world. It was like the universe just opened itself up to me again and was showing me how beautiful it could really be. And so, during that period of time, while I was in this information and learning myself, I strived to be the best version of myself I could possibly be. And so in my mind, that meant, everything good. And because I felt that everything was good, I also saw the best in other people. And it also, I do need to just take note of the fact that in the beginning stages, everybody that I met was already kind of family. So I also thought that coming into this way of life meant that we were all going to be family. Like, we all wasn't, striving for the same things, which it was to be the best versions of ourselves. And so, I just really believe whatever I put into the universe is what will come back to me. And so with me and my husband being together, that's what happened for a very long time. I would say for practically about 6 years. Like, anything we asked for, it would appear. Um, the intimacy that grew between me and my husband was phenomenal. Like, I can't even begin to really describe the relationship. But what I can say is things that neither of us had ever felt before or seen before or experienced before started to happen. Things like telepathy, things like um, me and him being able to hear each other's thoughts, things like being able to finish each other's sentences. We will share dreams, like literally be in the same dream doing the same things, but in our bodies. We also was able to start picking up on each other's emotions. He'd know when I was happy. He'd know when I was sad. He'd know if I was angry. He could feel it even when he wasn't around me. Um, what else? He could. I could sense him coming into a room before he got there. So I knew if he pulled up in the driveway before he even walked through the door, or I know if he was coming in the room before he even appeared. So it was like just so many things that was so many that was so amazing. It was like living in a magical wonderland. It was like I don't know, like really, it just was magical. And so for a very long time, that's the way we learned. We lived our lives, and we were so inundated. I don't know if I'm using that correctly, but if I was, we were so deeply immersed in this energy of love that we felt for each other and the universe and ourselves that we literally wanted to share it with those around us and started to affect those around us. So people would literally be drawn to our energy. So much so that it was like people was coming to us all the time, just wanting to hang out with us, be around us. They wanted us to teach them. They wanted us to help them on their journey towards healing, which we did. And it was phenomenal for a very long time. We loved it and we didn't see anything wrong with it. So we kept doing it for 6 years or so. So, and people were healing. People were genuinely healing from the energy. And then what happened was we started to realize that, well, we would open our homes to practically anybody at that time. And people were so overwhelmed by the power of love that they were feeling from us that they bombarded us, literally. Like we would literally have people coming to our house all the time, day and night, didn't matter what time, calling us all the time, all that stuff. And even when we would request for them not to come over to our house or not to bother us during certain periods of time, they still would. And so what ended up happening was that we went from being these people that was vibrating high all the time, we just flying out here, wind beneath our wings type shit. And all of a sudden it was like somebody shot us and we came plummeting down, like falling off a cliff, plummeting down to our death. But it wasn't it was a death in actuality. It was a death rebirth cycle that we were going through, just not understanding it. Now understanding, but not understanding then. So, what ended up happening is that we found ourselves being drained of all of our energy. So much so that, and we weren't even really aware of how bad it was until we found out that our home was being foreclosed on by our landlord and that the police came. They banged on my door and told us we had 15 minutes to get out of our home. So me and my family had to pack up in 15 minutes and find somewhere to go because we had no idea that what house was foreclosed on. And so that once again brought on a feeling of being alone, of being scared, of being angry. I was so angry at the time at everybody. It didn't even matter who you were. I was angry with the world, with the universe, with the ancestors, with all these people who came and I allowed to come and drain me of my energy and I allowed to come in and manipulate me and use me and my family until we had nothing left. And so, during that period of time, because of the anger and the devastation from the fall from grace, so to speak, I cut everybody off. Literally, there's a handful of people that I kept around me, and I do want to just shout them out real quick. Neb Hay too. She is my mentor, my teacher, my sister, my friend, everything, anything. She is the reason that I've learned so much so quickly. Her and my husband was like a tag team for years, so I have to shout her out. Omitola of Ubuntu Earth Collective. She was my midwife. She actually delivered my son at home, and she has been a very very stable person in my life. Always looking to help me, always looking to encourage me and help me to move further. So I have to shout her out. Kat Katrina Sanders of Fitness Fiend. She was there. She opened her home to me and my family when we first found out this news. She made sure that we were good, even though she was very, very much pregnant at the time. She helped us out a lot by, giving us somewhere to stay, making sure we were good, making sure we had food, things of that nature, checking on me, checking on my mental health. Aital Alameen of Island Savvy Collection. She was there for us once again, same thing, just making sure that we were good, making sure, and she was going through her own thing at the time too, so I couldn't even expect but so much, but she still was there to make sure that we were not losing our minds because we were out here with just me, my husband, and my kids trying to survive. Um, Two young kids at that. Who else? Darnice of Magical Misfit, my cousin. You know, all these people was just there for me, helping to build me up, helping to encourage me to keep me moving forward. Because really, at that point in time, I literally could have fucked anybody up. Honestly, like I was out for blood. I mean, real talk. I didn't believe in nothing. I didn't. There was nothing I believed in. It was nothing. Like I was just so angry that it was like, fuck the world. Don't ask me for shit. So, big shout outs to all of them. And last but not least, um, during that period of time, like I said, the anger was so overwhelming. I felt so oppressed. I felt trapped. I felt like nobody cared at all, and there was no way out. And it was really, really a hard time. I didn't know what to do. I didn't really feel like I could trust anybody. And um, one of the major influences during that period of time was Ifa Shayo Ugunjobi of Wild Women Do It As They Please, which is wifey. Um, Ifa Shayo has been such was really such a strong foundation for me during that time because she reminded me of who I was. She reminded me of what it felt like to have freedom again, what it felt like to be free again. She helped me to get through the anger and the feeling of oppression that I felt. So I finally healed myself of the anger and was through finding my freedom. That's how I kind of got through that big uh, catastrophe of being kicked out on my ass by the universe, literally, and other people as well. So during that time, like I said, I started finding myself again. I started embracing my freedom. I felt that during that time, I was like, I don't have to be good all the time. I can walk this middle path. I can have fun and still be very spiritually motivated and spiritually grounded and things of that nature. And I don't have to give up who I am completely because, I'm supposed to be just this angel walking on earth. It was just too much. It was too much to carry. And I decided that I didn't have to be that way and I didn't want to. So I started to so as I'm regaining this, sense of freedom, what ended up happening is that sexual energy came back real strong again. It came back like a tornado, like, oh yeah, like they were coming to get me, like this sexual energy overtook me again. And it felt like that I just wanted to be free. I wanted to be able to express and explore my sensuality, my sexuality as I please, and I didn't want to be obligated to anything. And at the time, I felt trapped. Literally, I felt trapped in the relationship that I was in. It had really nothing to do with my husband specifically, except for that he was my husband. And because of this husband wife situation that we have, grown accustomed to based off of patriarchy, that we could only be one thing and that it could only express itself in one way. And so, and it was really aggravating. It was really annoying to me. And I started to rebel from that too. I'm a rebel by nature. So I started rebelling against that too. Thankfully, I'm so thankful for the husband that I had because he stuck through it with me. And anyway, so what I started to do is starting to explore how to use this sensuality to sexuality in a way that does not have to necessarily be sexually, but that it could be really, really fulfilling. So, I started to do African dancing. I started to do yoga. I started to work out with my personal trainer, which is Sanders. Um, I tell Aliman for African dance, Ifashayo Igonjobi for um, yoga. So yeah, I started to every day, and I started to twerk. Shanice Hosh. I started to do twerk classes. I needed to find ways to generate this energy, and in the process of that, regain my sense of confidence, regain my sense of happiness and joy and love and sensuality and sexuality. And so that's what I started to do. And in the process, like I said, my husband was really, really patient with me. very supportive of me, understanding, and he understood that I needed to find ways to express this sexual energy without boundaries. And so he had to deal with a lot. I can say that, but he did, and he's an awesome man for it. I also started to embrace that sensuality, sexuality, and that freedom component. As I also was able to start to embrace the fact that sensuality and sexuality and freedom have been the themes of my life. Like I said, from a young age, this has been following me from my first kiss to my first sexual experience to my first marriage to my high school experiences, and even to this one. This has been following me. The sense of not being oppressed, the sense of being able to do as I want to do in the ways that I want to do, and being able to express myself as myself. That's where my freedom comes in. And once I was able to start embracing the sensuality and the sexuality aspects of it with the freedom side of it, I was able to truly embrace who I am, which is why, which ended up becoming my passion, which ended up becoming what I love. Now, I love to be able to heal people, and I love to be able to help you to discover who you are. That's one of the things that I love. But I also love when women embrace their freedom and their sensuality and their sexuality, and they're able to stand in that energy strongly. It empowers them. It allows them to explore themselves but outside of what men want us to be, explore themselves as they want to be. And all of our sensuality and sexualities come out differently, but it's not that, but it's equally as important. And so with that, that is how I discovered Freedom Healers. I actually have been to several events that are for sisters only, that have helped me to strengthen my sensuality and explore my body, my body image, how I feel about it. And as the days go on, it becomes stronger. My ability to creatively express sensuality and sexuality without necessarily having sex. And that's what I would like to give to you, is the ability to express yourself sensually and sexually, and to discover intimacy, discover what true intimacy is outside of sexuality, as outside of pure penetration. What is because sexual energy is the most powerful energy here that we have to deal with on this planet. It is what brings souls from the ether down to this planet. It is so powerful that we can manifest with it. We can manifest our dreams with it. And so for me, it's always been it has become my mission to assist women in finding their sensuality, their sexuality, finding a deeper intimacy within themselves, and being able to express that freely. It is my mission to help women to awaken their divine feminine and transform the energy, um, transform and cultivate the energy into developing their inner enchantress and become free. So I didn't expect to talk for no 35 minutes or anything like that. I do know it was kind of like drawn out, but I did hit all my points. So thank you for tuning in. My name is Ashun Tola with Freedom Healers, and I'll see you next time. Oh, and you can visit me at www.freedomhealers.com. I have blogs going on. I will continue doing YouTube clips and YouTube channels. We have a Freedom Healers group that is specifically for my clients and my students to get more access to me more of the time. So once again, thank you all for tuning in. I had a great time talking to you and building with you, and it did help me to release so many things that I have not released as of today. So this is just part of my healing journey, and I welcome you to heal with me. So peace.